Yeah. Okay, we're recording. Freddie, how are you today?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, mate. It's an absolute pleasure. Let's jump straight in, and I'm intrigued to know the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
So, I mean, I just like to say all these are subjective choices.
Right. Okay.
I think music is highly subjective and based upon, time when we first heard like certain periods in our life. So, for me, like this song is it's Little Wing by Jimi Hendrix. I guess partly being a guitar player that influences it because it's such an amazing piece of guitar playing. But it was my I used to have like a CD player that was my alarm clock for school. So I always hear this song. It's quite bittersweet because I hated going to school.
Yeah.
And parents had just split up, and it was this kind of weird, like quite unhappy phase. But I don't know, it was like a quite angelic influence in my life,
Yeah.
Like so I recognized on some level that there was something incredibly special about music, about Jimi Hendrix, about possibilities, maybe even the kind of ticket that music might be to, or has been for a lot of people, and became for me like a different way of life.
I just want to sort of pick up on that quickly. Did that feel that we're sort of fast forwarding a bit, really? But I'm always intrigued when people say what you just said. Did it feel like it was a legit possibility coming from where you come from, around the people that were around you, that you could be, a rock and roll star?
No. I grew up very privileged. Like I'm not, like I'm not from the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah.
That's not my story. And actually, having grown up a bit and seen a bit more of life, and understanding what it means to be from the other side of the tracks, and what it means for people to make a success out of their lives.
Yeah.
I just think that's astounding. But
Yeah.
but even being privileged, and no, I just thought it was an impossibility. And also way pre-social media, and when everything was just CDs and magazines, like people were gods.
Yeah.
And now it's all about being relatable and about being instantly accessible.
It's so true. I mean, I'm fast approaching 50, Freddie, and I grew up in an era where I was obsessed with Morrissey, not so much now, but Morrissey, and Michael Stipe, and all of these like incredible, front people of bands. But I never had any idea what Michael Stipe was having for his dinner. I didn't know who Michael Stipe was hanging out with because there was no social media. And I think there's a beauty in that kind of magic. Do you know what I mean? That I think doesn't really exist anymore. Like,
No,
do you know what I'm saying?
it doesn't exist. And you can see that from all the festival headliners and all the bands that people still consider to be the big bands.
Yeah.
They're mostly old bands.
Yeah.
And it's because, I think it's because we used to have the attention span to be super fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not like addicts like we are now. Like
Yeah.
kids are almost like you're an addict to the app and to certain people.
Yeah.
And it's very like sugary. But yeah, I was super fans to bands, and I just don't see that it's the same cultivation of love is not really. I don't really see it anymore.
Yeah.
So like when people go and see like Blur at Wembley this year, it's to go and relive that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they go and see Strokes at where they're playing All Points East or whatever. It's always like the same bands headlining everything because they want to relive.
See, I get
time.
that.
Yeah.
I get that, and you've just mentioned two bands that had a huge impact on me. But I listened to an interview with Noel Gallagher the other day about Nebworth, and he said, they were asking him like why that was so iconic, and he said like apart from the timing and things like that, nobody had phones. And he said that's what made the connection so strong. That there was no distraction. It was the band, the fans. No one was filming, no one was texting, no one was on their phones. So I just thought,
yeah,
of course that's the case. Like, that's incredible. Like,
Yeah.
and that's gone now. And I think something that I've noticed, certainly post lockdown, is I run a venue, and we have big.
Well, that.
It's called the Pink Toothbrush in Rayleigh. It's the longest running indie alternative club in the UK. We're Steve and Blur cut their teeth there, so that's
Really?
yeah. And Depeche Mode were the resident band back in the day. Yeah, we've got some history. We ain't got a lot in Essex, but we cherish that one. And it's really weird when we play sort of it's weekends. It's still big indie bangers, you know, every Friday and Saturday. And the opening calls to a song come on, and kids go mental for about 30 seconds. And I don't know if that's just relatable to TikTok, but after 30 seconds, they're pulling their phones from their pocket again. And I just find that really strange.
In the club?
Yeah. Not everybody, but I can see it. And it's like, wow, like they just need. And so this is going to kind of lead me on to where I want to go with this and the music you're making now and the music with the vaccines. And tell me a little bit about how you approach songwriting now in a world where labels are focusing on, you know, the benefits of TikTok and the power of a Spotify playlist, you know, and you're immersed in thousands and thousands and thousands of bands that are constantly putting content out all the time. I shouldn't say content, music out all the time.
Content, yeah.
And so there's that pressure for a lot of artists to start with a chorus, you know, hooks, pull them in. Otherwise, we're going to get lost. Does any of them kind of trends and movements in tech that ever filter through into your creative process?
No.
Good.
Not into mine. I'm just not interested. I'm a kind of almost like elected Luddite in terms of I'm not going to understand TikTok. I don't want to understand it. I look at it and it makes me feel physically ill.
Yeah.
That's not a metaphor. Like, I mean, it makes me feel sick.
Yeah.
Because of the rate of it and my brain's not moving at that pace.
Yeah.
And I just have no interest in it. And I feel fortunate enough that there's people alive, like loads of us, that have a different attitude and a different sentiment around music.
Absolutely.
So that I feel like there's enough people that I would be interested in listening to music that I make.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm not anti anything. I'm not anti progression. I'm not. It's just so intuitively against what I feel is right for me.
Yeah. And
music to me is sacred. So
yeah,
I'm only going to do what I feel is right. I'm not going to try and play it.
So many of them things that I mentioned, them movements and trends and things like that, they all seem to kind of swerve the word art. The art don't feature in it. It's everything else but what's important, I think. Yeah,
but it's interesting what will be left in historically. You know, like I was talking to my mother-in-law yesterday. We were talking about when your parents die and about having to go through all their old boxes of pictures and clean out the attic. And I said, well, that's not going to exist in 50 years or 100 years. They're like disposing of someone's phone or whatever will be the phone then, you know. So what will be the record of all this like someone who's got as many TikTok followers as a population of a kind of big city, there might be nothing left of them. No residue, like nothing. Yeah. Once that app goes under, someone bans it, something happens. And again, I'm not judging any of it. But it's pretty interesting it holds so much power. Yeah. Because of the money it controls.
But in a heartbeat, it could disappear.
Yeah, but the industry have to serve it because they have to go with the changes.
Sure.
But it definitely feels like a race to the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Personally, but that said, not an easy thing to crack.
Yeah.
not an easy thing to be good at. And I think those people that are good at it and crack it work really hard at it. So, you know,
Yeah. I'm
I
going to
could
take
do that.
I'm going to take you back. Track 2. Tell me the first song, please, Freddie, you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you.
It's Papa's Got a Brand New Bag by James Brown. I didn't think about these answers too much. I just answered them.
That could easily have been the first one as well. What an intro.
Oh yeah, no, but I just remember it's the first. I just remember being in my parents' living room, probably with a hairbrush or a pen or something, and just doing the whole James Brown thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd even seen James Brown perform or knew what he looked like. I just knew how to move to music like that.
Yeah.
So he was my first musical hero.
And where was that? Where was home? Where was growing up?
That was in Vauxhall.
Yeah.
Um,
Was home musical?
yeah, yeah. My mum and my dad had at one point played guitar. My dad used to manage a music shop. My mum was a great pianist and a guitar player and everything, but both of them had long since forgotten how to play.
Yeah.
But it was a very artistic household. My parents at that point were in the photography industry.
Yeah. So was there instruments laying around?
Yeah, it was like a massive like nylon string classical guitar, and I played that for years. Did my first concert at school when I was probably 6.
Yeah.
Like not knowing what I was playing, you know, just would have been absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
But that was, yeah, it was definitely, it was not a house that was a stranger to the arts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you touched on school, so that's fitting that I'm going to ask you now to tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please.
So let's fast forward to secondary school.
Okay.
So Last Night by the Strokes. So
Yeah.
like, again, talking about that collective shared experience, consciousness, which like another thing that doesn't really exist, I suppose, where Nebworth, there was like a percentage of the UK population that signed up to go to Nebworth.
I think 8 million people signed up to try and get tickets. It's something
Yeah.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah, 8 million, that's a percentage.
Yeah.
And the Strokes, like not on that level, but it was the same kind of cultural phenomenon.
Yeah. The excitement was insane, wasn't it, around the Strokes?
Yeah. Yeah, it was insane. Interesting, you know, like if you were around in the 80s in New York and you knew those bands, you'd be like, why is everyone going mad? I've seen this.
Yeah.
Right. But we'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
It's like, what are these shoes? Converse things, like, wow. And I was speaking to my friend who grew up in Denmark, and they had to go and get them imported. Everyone was getting Converse imported.
Yeah.
It's like, what kind of cigarettes do they smoke? You know, what kind of whiskey do we have to be drinking? And it at that age, and I actually like later kind of started hanging out a bit with Albert Hammond Jr. and we worked with him and started to see the reality of the kind of drug abuse and the alcohol abuse and how everything kind of like that shit crashed and burned, right? Like it does for most people. But they were super young. When that band came out, I was probably 13.
Yeah.
And it just blew our minds. I mean, like, great, you know, cigarettes, booze, you know, girls, parties, everything. That was, and it was a tribe.
Yeah.
We go to Camden, we buy the vintage you know, all the vintage clothes. We all had like super long hair and it defined us just at the right time.
Yeah. And the Strokes looked like a gang, didn't they?
Every good band looks like a gang.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Every good band looks like a gang. Yeah.
And I think as much as it had that stripped back, you know, kind of post-punky, you know, that they wore their influences on their sleeves, but of all of the bands that influenced them, I think the Strokes far outweighed them all with pop tunes because all of their songs were just instant, like so catchy, incredible choruses.
Oh yeah, I think it was real record store snobbery,
Yeah.
like nonsense. Like, yeah, they just sound like television. It's like
Yeah.
a little bit,
Yeah.
maybe.
Mm.
But actually, I mean, his favorite songwriter I heard was Bob Marley,
Right.
Julian Casablancas.
Yeah.
And he was, again, like later when I was living in New York and talking to people that worked with him, and he was looking at people like Kesha. He was like, I
Yeah.
want to write a song like that.
Yeah.
But it was some of the best, and again, like you were talking about Morrissey. I don't know how old you were when you went to see the Smiths, if you did see the Smiths, but I saw the Strokes at 14. It's like peak.
Yeah.
And rock and roll is I don't know if you have kids, but that kind of young, being in a gang, putting everything into your art, just you're a kind of solipsistic island. And obviously life changes. You get a bit older, you have kids, you're like, you see the kind of game of it and the fun of it and the fancy of it. But it is that concentrated being in a band sense, like you're being in your 20s.
Yeah.
And you're like on a mission.
Yeah.
And there's something, I don't know what it is, like archetypal or sacred or really special about it, because it obviously speaks to people again and again and again, since I don't know, the Shadows.
Yeah. Did you know what you wanted to be when you was at school?
Yeah, I wanted to be a rock star.
Did you tell the careers officer that? Because that's what I said to my careers officer. They just laughed at me.
I told everyone that. My friend sent me a video the other day of me like in school, like smoking behind somewhere, being like, what do you want to be? I want to be a rock star. And I was like, don't worry, I'll come back and look after you. This guy's now like a billionaire, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, send me some money. But he's no, that's what I wanted to be, and I was incredibly arrogant, and which was a gift then. And
arrogant? Would you say you was confident?
Very confident, but also quite arrogant. Yeah, I had like complete blind faith. So these are things that really helped me, because if I didn't have this, I wouldn't have done something so audacious.
Yeah.
But so I left school when I was 15.
Yeah.
I got kind of kicked out for behavior and drinking and music. I was just always confiscating my guitar, and I was always getting in trouble and getting caught with things and people. And so I got kind of asked to leave, and I went to music college when I was 16. And then I thought, you guys are all a bunch of losers. What have you guys done? Like, I definitely wouldn't be so foolish to approach that way now. Like, if I was the teacher, I would have slapped me,
Yeah.
I was like, what have you done? Like, why are you teaching here? Why are you teaching me? What have you done? Nonsense. But that was my arrogance and my one-track mindedness. I was like, I don't want to learn how to play guitar like Angus Young, and this is like, I want to be me. I don't want to be like an amalgamation of all these people. And I actually,
that's good. That's good.
No, I was bang on.
Yeah.
I was bang on, but it doesn't mean I couldn't have learned a lot. And I've even considered recently, like, would I want to go to like a good music school and study jazz, study something? What does that music career look like if it continues to develop? Do I want to be able to score for things? And my favorite musicians now are all trained.
Yeah.
And you can hear a guitar player that's trained and one that isn't. Even the best guitar players who aren't trained, you can hear there are things that they do not know how to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about the first record you remember buying.
You hear me clicking. The first album I remember buying that wasn't the Pokemon album, because I can't talk about that. It's Surfer Rosa by the Pixies.
Fucking hell, come on. Like, who put, like, honestly, this is meant to be the embarrassing one. You've just dropped fucking Surfer.
I told you it was the Pokemon album. That was the first thing I ever bought. It's very limited airtime I can give you on that, but there was a Pokemon rap in there about Raichu, etc. But I think I'd heard "Where Is My Mind?"
Yeah.
something, and there was like all the Pixies albums were like £3, like a massive discount HMV.
Yeah.
It had a topless woman on the front, and I really liked it, but the song that stood out for that was Bone Machine for me.
What a song! What a song!
Yeah, and then I probably didn't appreciate it, but now I think Joey Santiago, amazing guitar player.
Mm.
You know, Francis Black, great singer, great songwriter. Kim Deal, genius.
Yeah,
great band.
What are your thoughts?
Hard to do that.
What are your thoughts on bands from that era and eras before coming back and playing that album? I asked that because I saw the Pixies do Doolittle, and around that time saw Lemonhead do Shame About Ray, James Addiction do Ritual, and there was just a big spate of it. And I've had a few guests that have done them shows, and some of them kind of felt uncomfortable with it. And so I'm just wondering, as a musician and as a music fan, what your thoughts are on bands doing that sort of nostalgia thing of playing that album in its entirety.
I'm not very interested in it. It makes sense why people do it, because it's like we were talking earlier. It's kind of, you commodified it into like something bite-sized, that someone can understand.
Yeah.
I remember that time, that experience. That's stored in my memory, and I'm now going to go and relive it. And it's a fun night out. It's like going to the movies.
Yeah.
It's really interesting what we're paid for and what we weren't. Like, we'll go to Five Guys and spend like £20 on a burger, and the cinema's like, you go with your family, it's like 50 quid.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. That's what we're willing to, what we deem has value like that. But I guess it's like the movie industry. The only thing that sells is the franchises, because the zeitgeist already exists in your memory.
Yeah.
Pick anything, any toy, like Barbie. Barbie making a film. Fast and Furious, like 30, and then you have the antithesis of that, which is the kind of art house films, which again, like, I think do okay, like not making a lot of money, but there is definitely a market for it, and that's a bit like the vinyl industry.
Yeah.
Six Music. There's a big kind of subculture of really like quality stuff, and I'm not against blockbusters. But I guess I would put the reunion shows more in like the blockbuster category, like the nostalgia shows.
Yeah.
A little like bite-sized thing. Okay, we can market this. It's really, really clear. But it's odd as well. I remember putting on a charity gig for a friend of mine who died, and we had like 4 bands on the bill that could have easily sold out the venue. Some of them like 3 times over, and it didn't sell out because it was really hard for people to get their heads around what's this going to be. You got this band and this band and that band, and so it's an easy thing to sell. Like, I'm not interested in going to see it.
Yeah,
it was interesting, like the Glastonbury headliners this year.
Elton John.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not interested really in seeing Elton John or Guns N' Roses, but I'm a big Arctic Monkeys fan. I see them quite often because we used to tour with them. Like, Jamie and the band is a complete gent, and he always puts us on the guest list and we get tickets. And I just think they're amazing. I think you got Axl Rose with all his like prosthetics, and and then Elton John similar, and then you got Alex Turner, who just, they seem so unplastic compared to every other band at their level.
Yeah.
They're just very, very real people.
Yeah. Elton John looks surreal. It's like you're just so used to him being Elton John and looking like Elton John. No one else dresses like Elton John. No, sometimes you watch like Vegas Elvis, you just think, fucking hell, like, what a look. That was just a complete unique look. And I look at Elton John and just think, fucking hell, who dresses like that? Like, don't get me wrong, Geese is super talented and writes some incredible records, but looks bananas. Like, you just look at Elton John and you think, that's a mental look. But
he's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's an incredible look. That's not really what I'm going to be wearing, because no one else could wear that. People could wear what Alex Turner wears and walk down the street, and people would be like, "It's a cool looking guy." You stroll down the street wearing Elton John's clobber, and people are like, "That's pretty weird."
But Alex Turner's like a film. He's like a film star.
Yeah,
he's got that star quality, and you see it when you actually see it when you're with him, because you see how much the camera adds. So like a film star,
yeah,
looks different on camera, and a model, like a massive model, look different on camera.
yeah,
I have no idea what that's about.
yeah.
I saw Clive Owen the other day. I was like, God, you're like not tall. You're quite orange.
Yeah.
I can see your hair dye. I thought you were like mega hunk, and on camera it must all come alive.
Yeah.
But Alex, he just photographs amazingly, like dresses amazingly.
Yeah.
But he has that kind of quality.
Yeah.
For sure. Elton John is like a whole different beast, I guess, but incredible, like otherworldly talent and
absolutely. I was literally listening to Mona Lisa's a Mad Hatters before we recorded this today. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. I've Swervy stylist. Let's go. I want to know about where you went clubbing and the music that you was dancing to when you went clubbing, please, Freddie.
So I'd say my clubbing days were probably 17, 18, 19. And they were pretty hardcore, actually. My brother's band, The Horrors, had just taken off. And they were actually most of them from Southend and Essex.
They were. Junk Club. I was there. It was
Junk Club,
yeah,
exactly.
Of course.
Junk Club was called Junk Club for a reason, right? It was some of like the gnarliest drug taking parties, crazy kind of almost like quite twisted like scene. And yeah, so I would say the song is Counting Fives by The Horrors.
Yeah. Watching.
Yeah. And so that, they blew up really quickly. And I'd say that was the time when indie had become almost the dominant subculture. So obviously it wasn't like the pop culture, but it was pretty much pop culture.
Yeah.
Alexa Chung, Arctic Monkeys, Claxons winning the Mercury Prize, Kate Moss and Pink Doherty, that whole festival fashion, that was it.
Absolutely. That was, I don't think we'd seen that since maybe Britpop. Exactly. And it was absolutely huge. And being an Essex boy and my club being literally sort of 20 minutes down the road from Junk, and knowing that the people at Junk that put that together, we have for years dined out that we had this kind of absolute gem of this hidden little indie night that had been going for 30 years, and it was this amazing thing. And these kids down the road put something on that blew us out of the water. For about 2 years, it was like, fuck, they've just gone really fucking left field with it, and they've made, and obviously it weren't just the Horrors. We were seeing these New Puritans, Ipso Facto, Neil's Children. All of these bands were all just coming out of Southend, and it was like, what's going on? Like, are we old? Are we out of date? And it just, Junk looks so exciting, and obviously the Horrors were the absolute poster boys for it. And yeah, it's so. I've got real strong memories of Reese coming down to my clubs and being a little Northern soul kid when he was like 16, and they were always kind of tastemakers. They were always a little bit ahead of the game, and look what's happened. They've grabbed that and become what they've become, which is absolutely incredible. But yeah, fiercely jealous of what they were doing, and it threw out a lot of amazing talent. Like,
yeah, I mean, like Reese he's another like film star kind of character, and his passion for it, and he'll never change. He'll be DJing and dressing like that until he's in his 70s.
Absolutely.
That's in his blood, And but he is also like a superhuman partier.
Yeah.
like never a wrinkle. Day 3. What is I gotta go home. I had like one of my worst like hangovers. We went to jump New Year's Eve party. I went back to someone's flat, and he decorated his room like the milk bar from Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
And it was like day 3 or something. And I was like, this is dark.
That's intense, isn't it?
This is dark. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Right. Okay, I'm going to take you home for track 6. Tell me your favourite song from an artist from your home county, please, Freddie.
Oh, my home county.
Have you gone country? That's fine.
Oh, home country. Oh, shit, home county. Well, I can try home county. No, I can't. I'm going to put "Out the Blue" by John Lennon.
Oh, beautiful.
Just because it's my song. It's my like wife and I. It's like our song, and he's my favorite songwriter.
Yeah.
And when I really discovered what love was, I heard that song at just the right time.
Yeah.
And it made total sense. Just when people describe love, they say, you'll know when you know when it hits you. And it is. It's like when you become a parent, or you experience that for the first time. It does come out of the blue.
Yeah.
And it does blow away life's misery, like the song says.
Yeah.
What are the lyrics? Every day I thank the Lord and Lady for the way you came to me, And anyway, I survived long enough to make you my wife.
Yeah. And
I can hear that in his story. He was obviously like went through so much and was a very troubled guy. And he had a very difficult and troubling childhood or whatever, and obviously had a very cynical view on the world. And he's saying that I survived long enough to understand what love is.
Yeah.
To be woken up. But he obviously has so many great songs. But I'm much more a fan of his post-Beatles songs.
Yeah.
I think God is an amazing song. If you know that, like the opening line, God is a concept by which we measure our pain. I still don't really understand what he's saying, but I can never forget that line. Yeah. And it really, I guess, like growing up in working class Liverpool, what that would mean to him, what the pain everyone's going through, and they're saying, and the societal injustice. And so.
Freddie, I asked you about confidence a little earlier, and I want to ask you, I mean, from what you've done with the vaccines and what you're doing now, which we'll obviously talk about the music you're making currently, you've carved out and grown and sustained a career in an incredibly tough industry. Tell me about your relationship with drive and how driven you are.
I'd say I'm obsessively driven. Yeah. And I actually try quite hard to be less driven than I am.
Where's that drive come from?
Trauma, probably. Oh, it's a really complicated question, because there's so many. I think we live in Britain. We live in the shadow of 2 world wars, and we live in the shadow of a lot of hard times. I'd say that my dad, his parents were in the war generation. I think that he felt that he really wanted to. I mean, my grandfather was very working class, and he became quite middle class. So my dad wasn't trying to escape poverty or anything. He just didn't feel like he belonged where he grew up in Loughborough, grew up in Stockton, and he moved to Loughborough, and he just wanted to get out. Didn't feel like he fit in with his family. Didn't feel like he fit in any of it. And he's like that, obsessively driven. And so I think I probably got it from him, that my value comes from achievement. And that's not something that I agree with, but I see it in lots and lots of, usually like men, who are very, very successful.
Yeah.
But I say men because, recently I'm awakening to, it sounds funny, but I've recently become a feminist. And that sounds quite like silly or whatever. I always understood it. I don't think I ever felt it. And it's interesting how much we celebrate successful men, driven men. And then we don't celebrate. I think what's much like, I met this woman last night. She lost her husband when her kids, a couple of her kids were under 4, and she had 4 kids. And if you have kids, like being a single parent is near impossible anyway. And bringing up 4 kids, and no one's like celebrating her. And actually, I much more value that type of selfless drive now, because the thing about that more celebrated traditional drive is it's very satisfying. It's an addiction. Get like, oh, you sold, make this happen, make that happen, and everyone goes, brilliant, it's so great,
Yeah.
But actually, it can often leave a lot of destruction in its wake.
Yeah. But that is an achievement in itself, and there should be no shame attached to celebrating that.
What's that?
Achievement in whether it be music or record sales, whatever, as
100%.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. I mean, I guess as I have this theory. I have a theory. It's probably just fact, but I'd say 40 would be a good age to live. For most of human evolution, if you made it to 40, you'd be doing really well.
Yeah.
So humans had a 40-year lifespan, a lot longer than they had in 70, 80, 90, 100-year lifespan. So when you get to like 30, evolutionary speaking, you're probably coming to the last decade of your life.
Yeah.
And so I think certainly when I got to 28, 29, I was having a real awakening and a shift. And like, okay, what do I want the second half of my life to be about? And it felt very intuitively wrong for me to say the same thing that the first half of my life was about, which was about me, achievement, money, sales, like rock star, all those things that I so desperately went after.
You consciously looked for something different.
Yeah, it's not easy for me, but I'm like, I want to be great. Like, I'd much rather be a great dad than be.
Yeah.
And be in, these. I'm not willing to sacrifice the things that I think are really, really important for the things that I think are materially important. But it's definitely been a journey for me, because it's not an easy thing to pursue, but for me at least. But yeah, I think that kind of those quiet achievements, that they're kind of much more normal things in life, are actually much harder.
Yeah.
Than being a CEO or being a rock star.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Last track. Can you tell me a song that you think many may not know that you would like them to hear, please?
Okay, so I'm going to say Hasta que te conocí by Juan Gabriel. So I don't know if you've known anything about my new album, but I spent a lot of time in Mexico recently. And I fell in love with the culture, with the people, with the music. And their Elton John is someone called Juan Gabriel. People attribute him to Elton John. There's an easy way to reference him. It's not that similar, but he's kind of that successful, that legendary.
Yeah.
And discovering the music there was like discovering Tutankhamun or something. I thought that I knew a lot about pop music and alternative music and really alternative music, and all I could really do is go back to stuff I knew, but felt like I discovered a whole new world of music.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes when I went to a phase where I really, really valued obscure music. I love this record that Robert Fripp made. I love this stuff. And then I started thinking, well, what's the really, really great music? Honestly, it's the things that most people know. It's Bowie, it's Hendrix. It's like the kind of great prophets of music. Beethoven. And Juan Gabriel is as good as all those people. So it was really great to discover something that wasn't obscure. It just wasn't of my culture.
Yeah.
So that's been a real gift. He's someone as grand and brilliant and first as Elton John, but it was a completely new discovery. And he made an album. He was the first person to record pop music at this place called La Palacio de las Bellas Artes. He did a charity gig there in 1989 or something with a full orchestra and a full choir playing his hits. And it's probably my favorite song of recent years, This Has to Cater Connoisseur. And it's 8 minutes long, and it's this epic with a mariachi beginning and orchestral outro and brass section. It's just incredible. So I think that most people probably wouldn't know. Everyone in Mexico has heard that. Everyone.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. They sing it, and you walk down the street, you hear it. But
yeah,
in the UK or in Europe and or wherever else, if you're not Mexican, you probably haven't heard it. So
wonderful. Well, we re-gift that to the listeners of the podcast, because Freddie, we put together a little Spotify playlist of all the songs that you've picked today, and obviously we'll put your music on there as well. So let's talk a little bit about that as we start to sort of wrap the podcast up. What can people expect from your music if they're only familiar with what your work is with the vaccines? What can people expect?
I haven't heard that question in such a long time, because people, when What Did You Expect came out, everyone in the whole fucking world said, so what can we expect from the vaccines? 50,000 person to say that. So what can people expect? It's nothing like the vaccines, for a start. And I don't know what kind of music I could attribute it to. It's really like a musical version of what we've been talking about for the last 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I guess I had a view on the music industry about what it was becoming. Went through this, but I'm still going through. I had a phase of a real personal awakening and like a reshift in the direction of my life. My attitude towards everything is kind of changing and changed.
Did lockdown affect that majorly?
Oh yeah, that was a real catalyst. I was already in a major change before that, but I was stripped of everything that I did to keep myself busy, not thinking about thinking.
Yeah.
So it was a time to everything started coming up. And actually, I didn't put much attention into the music necessarily. I was putting all the attention into that healing and personal growth and whatever. And the music just started appearing. And I like to think about it like the music was like a reward.
Yeah.
Or a signpost or a validation from the universe. It said, okay, you're doing the right thing. This is a song. This will explain this. So it wasn't like a master plan or anything. The songs just started appearing. Bought some cheap recording gear, started putting it down, parked it, thought, well, maybe one day I'll make a solo record. And then I just started meeting people left, right, and center that facilitated it. And then before I knew it, we recorded a few sessions over a year. I was talking about Mexico on some previous trips to Mexico with the vaccines. I'd met some musicians, started collaborating with musicians, went back to Mexico, put a band together, finished recording the album there, done some small tours there. And yeah, man, I mean, it came out on Bandcamp today. So today being 9th of March. And it's really weird. I feel like a passenger for the whole thing.
Explain a little bit more about that. What do you mean?
As in, I just feel like part of it. Like the music came through me all those people showed up in order that it could happen. And I've realized looking back, you know, I think the really great things in my life have been like that. It's in some way, a lot of the time, I'm just preparing myself for that moment to happen. But I didn't, for the vaccines, for example, I didn't want to start the vaccines. I'd been struggling and, you know, so it's like I said, I'm super arrogant, left school, being like, fuck you guys, going to be a rock star. See you in 6 weeks, I'll be headlining Reading, right? No one gave a shit. You go to London, you play, no one cares. There's a massive alcohol stuff, massive drug stuff. Things start actually getting like falling apart a bit. Went through some kind of quite big personal tragedies. And it was like that was a 6-year period, and towards the end of that, I was fucked. I was done. And I got a call from someone, a friend. He says, "I just signed a record deal. Do you want to come and play guitar?" I was like, "What?" I think I was working as a waiter. It's like, "You know, pay me like £50 a day to play guitar?" Like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
It's happening, you know, Dad, Mom, it's happening. We're supporting someone you've never heard of playing pubs. Yeah, we're the support band for someone you've never heard of playing pubs, getting paid £50 a day. It's the fucking dream, right?
Yeah.
And then about a year into that, or 8 months into that, my friend said he had like a personal crisis, and he said, let's start a band. I'm not doing the solo project anymore. Let's start a band." And I said, "No." I was like, "No, just got a job, 50 quid a day. I can't believe this is going away. I don't want to start a band, go back to that shit, you know, playing what other people load out in front of us. I don't want to do that." Went to one rehearsal, met up with Justin, bang. It's like, this is it. And then my friend who said, "Let's do it," he was like, "I don't want to do this. I'm out." And I'm like, "Okay, see you later. I'm starting this band." I wasn't the author of that. I just was in the right place, the right time.
Yeah.
That's what was meant to happen. And I just feel the same way about this. You know, I tried really hard in life to not, it's like to let go of the reins.
Yeah.
Just want to be peaceful and present and available to the next right decision or the next right thing that seems that I should do. Because when I start thinking about things too much, like, "Oh, I gotta make the song that works on TikTok and it's got this 30-second intro," I might believe it for a minute and then I'll just realize a few days later it's complete shit. I've never tried to do that, but I've tried to do that about just everything else, you know? I need to make some money. What should I do? Okay, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then you end up just pissing off a load of people. I'm a real believer in just like, you know, I'm not the ocean. I'm just like trying to surf, kind of, you know, it's a shit metaphor, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Wait for the right wave, try and keep balance, stay calm, like it will come. Catch the wave at the right time. But I'm not the wave. I can't decide that this is going to be this, going to be that. And so, yeah, that's how I feel about the record. I'm standing in it and going, I love it, and it taught me everything, but I have everything, sorry, not everything, but it's taught me, it's reflected everything that I believe about life right now. And, but it's going to have it's got a complete mind of its own.
Are you going to be playing live shows in the UK?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm meeting, we're going to start booking a tour for May. I think next week or a week after that. Wonderful. Which I just want to do on my own. I did like a tour in Mexico. Some shows were like a 9-piece band. But I want to do it. I was even just thinking of doing some of it in just me in my car and setting it up so I can do it kind of all on my own. Because that is such a scary thing for me.
But that's healthy to test yourself, right?
Exactly, but it's like, but the irony is that's testing myself, and everyone would say, "Well, you play the O2, you play with this, you've done that." And it's like, well, that's the easy bit.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, it wasn't. Doing the O2 was actually really scary the first time we did it.
Yeah.
But you've got you and your brothers and your team and your lights and your stuff, and you're just standing there playing your role as part of that. And you're not the front man, and so actually to go and hold an audience and to do it on your own and to be like, well, I'm not hiding behind anything.
Yeah, totally accountable.
Totally accountable. Got to go and do the settlement. Got to go and
Yeah.
pick up the money. Like, got to go and be an adult.
Yeah.
That's
That's the
No,
bottom line, isn't it?
that's revolutionary for me. My brother was saying he was hanging out with Graham Coxon the other day, and he was like, I got no idea how much my PRS checks are.
Yeah.
He said he's been like a millionaire since he was 19 or something, you know.
Yeah.
Great, that's great. But it's funny, like, vaccines are very successful. I was probably 21 when we signed the first like major record deal.
Yeah.
Kind of, you got someone to pay taxes, someone to do your accounting, someone you're like, can I have some more money, please? They're like, sure.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting, in some ways, learning about normal life.
Yeah, of course.
You know, which parenting will do to you. Like
Yeah.
5 seconds
Absolutely.
flat. Yeah.
Freddie, I've had a lovely time chatting, man. I really appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
You coming on and talking. It's been delightful. If people want to keep up to speed with everything that's happening with the record and with potential tours and things like that, where's the best place to keep up to speed, mate? Don't say TikTok.
Yeah, someone who just spent 40 minutes shitting on social media. Yeah, go to my Patreon page. No, go to Instagram.
Wonderful. If it's cool with you, Freddie, I'll tag you in it when this comes out, so people can go and find it if they haven't done
man.
Already. Thanks again, Freddie. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank
bless
you.
you. If you want me to come and play your club, I'm there.
Wonderful. I'm going to press stop. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.